and good morning everyone. When I was asked to come here and give a few words, I naturally said, what subject would you like me to talk about? And they said, your life story, of course. And I said, okay, fine, how long have I got? And they said, 15 minutes. I said, 15 minutes for a life story? And they said, well, if it's too long, make it 12. And I was thinking 12 hours more likely, and I went home thinking that is impossible. But having my dinner that night, I was having spaghetti, and I looked at a bowl of spaghetti, and maybe you've all looked at a bowl of spaghetti from time to time, and I thought, well, this looks like a brain, actually, with all the spaghetti intertwined, and then I thought, well, each one of these strands is a story. And if I took one strand and made it into a story, then I may be able to do it in 15 minutes. So that's what I did. So I looked at the venue where we was coming today, and I thought, well, what story could I tell? What thing would run through my life from start to finish? And I thought of the word understanding, because I thought that was appropriate to the cathedral and everybody here. So the talk today is on understanding. So the word understanding, and everybody uses it from time to time, and I've used it with my kids. And I said, you have no understanding of what it's like to be a parent. And they say, of course not, because we're not parents. And then I've known my wife for 51 years now, and I have no understanding why she wants so many shoes and bags. And I have no understanding why she can go to a shop and fit a dress on and it fits perfectly, yet the next day she takes it back. And I have no understanding of these things whatsoever. But we're not here today to talk about the word understanding, it's having understanding. That's what I want to talk about today. So I've taken a story out of a recently published book. No prizes for guessing which one it is. There are 120 words on each page of the 392 pages, approximately. Now, that 120 words didn't start off with that. It started off with probably 1,000 words for each page, the thoughts and what goes into it. And then you have to condense it down to 120 words. So today, I've took a story that you won't see in the book because it's in between the lines of what I've condensed down. Now, I talk about this in the third person because this is obviously true, and if I talk about myself, then from 50 or 60 years ago, the pain will show. And the trouble is, I have a lot of water retention, and when I talk about myself as myself, the water comes out, generally my eyes. And you wouldn't want to see that. So I'm talking about the third person, really. So I've adapted this here today, and the story is entitled, Just Another Boy from Peterborough, which I am. So here goes. What did life have to offer a 5-year-old in 1955 when there was no understanding? No understanding of dyslexia or ADHD. The book on the boy's desk was opened on page 1. The teacher got hold of the boy's finger and pointed to each word as she read the first page. Fire, 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 the crowd shouted as the fire engine raced down the street. The teacher said to the boy, now you do it. Now you read it. So the boy did what the teacher said. He said, fire, 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 the crowd shouted. as the fire engine raced down the street. She said, "Very good. That's excellent." As she turned over the page, she said, "No, you do it." The boy was silent. No matter what the teacher said, he couldn't explain that every time he blinked his eyes, the letters of each word changed places, leaving him bewildered and with no understanding of how all of his classmates could read. Months passed, and his mother was called to the school to sort out what was now a disruptive child. She said, "At home he's a little sod. He aggravates his brother and sister, and there is nothing that I can do." For the next 10 years of his school life, he keeps his head down. But inevitably, there's the endless bullying, which is par for the course. Not only from some of his classmates, but some very uneducated and cruel teachers that had no understanding of what was happening to the boy that stood before them, waiting for the next beating. This only taught the boy to use the same principles as he'd learned in chess. That is, if I move here, where will my opponent move? So, if he wasn't at school, he wouldn't get a beating. So it was really the teachers that taught truancy. Leaving school at 15 with no qualifications, he looked at everybody that had hurt him over the years that last day, and he wished them all diarrhea for the rest of their lives. Just turning 16, he met a schoolgirl who was in her last year of school, and he instantly fell in love. The girl had problems too, but luckily they weren't the same as the boys, so they could help each other. They had a dream, and their dream was to spend the rest of their lives together, understanding that together they would be strong and they could do anything in life that they wanted. But being apart, they wouldn't stand a chance. Fast forward to 1974. They'd been married for 4 years, and for the last year they'd been living in a 10-foot caravan with their 3-year-old daughter. And they thought things could not get any worse. Well, you know what I'm going to say. They did. The boy got fired from his 17th job. Maybe because he was lazy. I know the boy. So, up to 1974, you could leave a job in the morning, or you could get fired from a job in the morning, and you could get one in the afternoon. It was easy. In 1974, maybe some of you will remember, there was a recession. I think inflation was about 16%. There was 2 million unemployed, and there was no jobs. Standing in that dole queue, asking and wanting for an extra £2 a week to make ends meet, and that fell on deaf ears. But he was astonished to hear what the clerk said to him, the advice that was given. If you want more money, you should have more children. So without ringing in his ears, the boy said to the girl, "We'll have 6 more children and we'll stop on the dole for the rest of our lives." That's the end of the story. You know, he's standing here today, so you know it's not right. But so, with that ringing in his ears, he said, well, if my employers couldn't look after me, and the government can't look after me, then I shall look after my family myself. And he signed himself off the dole, which he realised that was a silly thing to do because he'd shot himself in the foot, but he'd done it. Because over the last 3 months, he'd been on the dole, and him and the girl had taught themselves into and taught themselves out of every single conceivable business idea because of money, or the lack of money, rather. So then the boy said, everyone has windows. Water is free. And my father has a ladder. So all we need is a yard of scrim, which is a piece of cloth to clean windows. So off they went that afternoon to Pridmore's, next to the bus station in Millfield. It's not there now, it's a cafe. And bought this yard of scrim. There's 37 pence. 1974, 37 pence to start a business. Now, nowadays, you could probably get it in the pound shop. So in essence, anybody with no education, if they can't get a job, they could start a business today for £1, as long as they had a father or a friend who would lend them a ladder. So that business started 26th of September 1974. Now, most people who clean windows have a window cleaning round, but the boy and girl didn't want a window cleaning round, they wanted a window cleaning business. And there's a big difference between those two words, and I'll explain later if anybody wants to know. So that business that started as a window cleaning business soon and rapidly changed into a property maintenance business, because when the boy was cleaning windows, the customer would probably say, while you're up there, can you clean the gutters? And of course, the answer was yes. And then they'd say, can you mend fences? Can you unblock my drains? And it was always, the answer was yes. So for the next 2.5 years, things changed every day. And after 2.5 years, there was 2 of them working, the boy and girl was working full-time in it, and they had 4 part-time staff. So they wanted to expand. They wanted to go into another business as well. And the girl thought of selling second-hand prams. So, with £300, they went out and they bought a lot of second-hand prams, and they started a retail business. And that retail business was called Rainbow Warehouse. And it wasn't a warehouse as you and I would know it today. It was a 2 up, 2 down terraced house, 1229 Borges Boulevard, New England, in Peterborough. Fast forward, 1982. They had established that business and had sold it and made a very good profit out of that and very good living. In 1982, they developed a new shop in Orton Centre, which was 5 times the size. And within a couple of years, they had 20-odd people. Well, they had 20 people. I say odd. They were odd because they had to be odd to work with the boy and girl who was now focused. And it was now what you'd call workaholics. So, in 1982, they was getting more money coming in than they'd ever had in their lives. And they'd moved 5 times since 1974 to 82, moved five houses. But they wanted a larger house. They wanted something that would be more conducive to their income. So they found what was the biggest and dearest house, 6,000 square foot house in those days, and it was 225,000. It was about The average price of a house in those days was £25,000. So there was a recession on again, and with their understanding of the market by now, they realised it was a good time to buy. So they negotiated with the bank that had repossessed the house, and the boy got a 36% discount on it. But the house was new, but it only had first fix, like all their houses before. So there was no bathrooms, no kitchens, so they had to do that as they went along. By 1986, the building business, property maintenance business, was now builders. They were building extensions for people, as well as the property maintenance. So that had expanded. And they had 3 shops now, and they was working every minute of every day. And they stood still one day, and the boy said to the girl, "This is not what we want. We didn't want this in the first place." So they hired a caravan and went to Great Yarmouth for 2 days. And all they did was sit in that caravan and talk of what they wanted, the future, and what had happened. So they come home and they decided to sell 2 of the shops as going concerns and keep one and focus on it. And they decided that they wouldn't do anybody else's work on the property maintenance business. So over the following year, they finished all the contracts and just worked for themselves. And they focused. So I have to do this. I'm not actually reading it, but I don't want you to miss anything. And I kind of jump about, and I've been told by my PA, Dawn, don't jump about, go through it. But 2 years later, go through it so you don't miss anything. I know the story, but 2 years later they achieved another milestone, and that was they became millionaires. Well, on paper anyway, as everybody knows. I thought when I was young, a millionaire had a pile of cash, but you know that's not right. But that was a good milestone for them. So fast forward 18 years. Now, in that 18 years, 2004, they believe that if you go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, you come home at 7 o'clock at night, your business should have changed a little bit, even if it's a tiny bit. Every single day of that 18 years, that business changed and it grew. And it's very exciting times. And in 2004, they bought 6 acres of land at Hampton, Peterborough. And they was embarking on building, unbeknown to them, what was to be the largest independent baby nursery business in Europe. And how was they going to do it? How was they going to pay for it? Well, they remortgaged their house for £750,000 and put that in for a start. Then they got a £5 million loan and they built the shell. And this was all going to be paid out, the rest was going to be paid out of cash flow and profits, because the profits were very good, had been for years. But they hadn't figured that 4 years later there was going to be one of the worst recessions in history. So by 2007, they were seeing the start of the recession. Early 2008, and they was taking on more debt as well. But early 2008, the banks were panicking and starting to call in the loans, the good loans, to prop up the bad ones. And although the boy and girl had always paid their monthly payments and interest, one of the banks was trying to get £6 million back, because it was 0.80 over base, and that was probably the reason they wanted it back. So at this point it looked as though they could lose the business, and at this point the boy and girl could have run away and quite easily lived on the £3 million of pension money that they had put away over the years. But running away had stopped at his 17th job, and responsibility had kicked in. And now they were responsible for 110 people. And they wasn't going to let that responsibility go. So they needed some money. Well, the boy still couldn't really read by then, but he had 110 people who could, so he didn't need to. All he needed to do was focus on driving the business forward. But what he could do, and what he was capable of, was taking that £3 million legally and getting it back into the business, which he did. And that business was eating money. Although it's profitable, it was eating money every hour of every day, and that £3 million was soon gone. And this is something that can happen in business. You can have a real good, thriving business, and it can still go bust, even when you're making a lot of money. So, in the middle of 2008, things got desperate, and the boy had a think. I said, where do I get some more money from? So he was mortgaged up to the hill. He'd sold everything that he could sell, and what else was left? Well, there's just one asset, which was the house. So he said to the girl, I've got a fantastic idea. If we sold the house, we could put another £1 million into the business, and I think that may get us over the recession. He really thought it may get us over the next 4 months. And then he didn't know what he would do. So, and he said, don't you think that is a fantastic idea? And the girl said, well, where are we going to live? And he said, oh, in the office. He says it's a nice office. And we have 24/7 to fight this recession. And we won't have the responsibility of the house. Well, the girl knew sooner or later she would lose her home that they'd lived in for 26 years. So, with tears in her eyes, she looked at the boy and she said, nothing. 2 weeks later, they put the house on the market. And they put it on the market so they would sell it to the first person who come through the door. And they put it at £500,000. Less than what the estate agent had told them. Because they knew a year before it was worth £1 million more. And property was dropping like a stone. And if they could get in front of the market, they knew they had the understanding that they would sell the house. Well, they did. They was in front of the market by 6 months. And they sold the house to the first person who walked through the door. And they walked out with their suitcases with just their clothes. I can only imagine when the buyer opened the door to 26 years of accumulated good stuff. It was like a 7-star hotel. The beds were even made for them, and all they would need was their clothes. But within a few days of moving into the shop, the local council found out, and they come to see them. And the boy said, we have just come from basically a mansion to here. We're not stopping here. Not an extra day that we have to. We're here to save the business and 110 jobs. But the people in the council had no understanding whatsoever of the situation, and given them an eviction order. 21 days to get out. Luckily, the boy had not gone through all those beatings when he was younger to just bow down and do what he was told. So, with some very good friends who knew the law, they managed to stay in the shop for the next 2.5 years on a technicality. So over the next 3 years, they rapidly changed what they was doing. They started manufacturing their own products, and that became, over 2 years, 39% of their business. So the business changed, the technology was put in place, and everything was going fine. And they was making some very good profits, and they was paying off their debts. And by 2010, they was doing very well. Now, the business was doing £40 million a year, and everything was all geared up now for 200 million, which they could have easily done. They've got 130 people working for them at that time. And the boy and girl thought they'd been through a lot over the recession and really been battered, and said, do we really want to do it? And that was, if they wanted to do it, they'd either got to put other people out of business, which they didn't want to do, or they'd got to acquire other businesses. And that's what the whole of the high street was doing, acquiring other businesses. And it was a big fight, and everybody knew, everybody was fighting for survival in 2010. So the boy said, instead of hunting down acquisitions, let's become the hunted, because everybody was on the trail of acquisitions. So they put the business up for sale. Within a fortnight, they had 30 offers. And then by January 2011, they've got 8 offers of £70 million. The 14th of February 2011, at 1 o'clock, £70 million in cash hit their bank account. And this was fantastic because it was I believe it's a world record that will never be broken for a one-shop, independent mum and dad business in the nursery industry. So we fast forward to today, 43 years on from starting that first business. And that first business is still going, but they don't do window cleaning anymore. But if they did, they'd be doing the Shard. And how exhilarating would that be? So they've invested money. They've built 600 houses since 2011. They've got 180 boat marina, which has got permission for another 100 boats and 50 houses. They have an industrial portfolio of 120 tenants. And they've got investments in farming and technology and forestry, and investments in 18 London restaurants. And it goes on, it seems endless. How is this all done? It's done with one word. And the word is understanding. Understanding the customer's needs, wants, hopes and dreams. Understanding if you can put your heart and your soul, if you can understand and get into the heart and soul of your customer, who only wants one thing. And the one thing they want is to be protected. Protected from the bullies of this world, who have no understanding. So, if you know anybody who might benefit from a wider perspective of this story, the boy has written a book, and all profits go to a charity called Lend With Care. The book is entitled The Answer Is Yes, Now What Is the Question? By Neville Wright. And yes, I am Neville Wright, the boy who is just, and I emphasise just, another boy from Peterborough. Thank you.